In this video, I'm going to be showing you guys how to shoot a compound bow step by step. Now, before you try to shoot the compound bow, there's a few things we need to make sure of. And the first thing is to take a look at your bow and make sure everything's good. Especially if you're using someone else's bow or an old bow or you just now pulled it out after a long time. Be sure to just check the strings, make sure nothing's frayed or coming undone. It's nice to just look down the bow and make sure everything's straight because, hey, sometimes if you set this down on the wrong place at the wrong time, or someone else moves it out of the way, it doesn't take a lot for something to bend out. So just look down it, make sure everything's straight, make sure everything looks right, make sure the string looks all good, feels good. And if you want to take it a step further, go ahead and take it to a bow shop and let them check it out too. Now with a bow, there's two main adjustments, and that's going to be the draw weight, how much poundage it takes to pull that thing back, and the draw length. And that's how far the length is from basically here to back here, to where it actually sets up. Because the way a compound bow works, you pull back, it's going to be a lot of pounds, but then right here, these things up here end up twisting, and it makes it be a lot easier to hold it. So this is a 70-pound bow, so it's going to be like 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, and then whenever I get about right here, it's going to go back down to only holding about 15 pounds. But let's say you've already went to a bow shop, you have the poundage set for you, and you have the draw length set for you as well. From there, it's time to get an arrow, it's time to knock it up, and let's see what we can get started. Now it's time to go ahead and load the arrow. We're going to be sticking this end right here that has like that little U shape, and we're going to knock it onto the string right here at the D loop, in between the D loop right there. Now most arrows only have 3 fletchings, and you put the odd feather up. Usually it'll be like 2 greens and a white, put the odd feather facing up. This one happens to be 4, so I've got it figured out there. From there, depending on your rest, you're either going to slide the arrow in, or on this one it's a drop away, so I'm going to just push it up with my finger to where it holds it just like that. From here, the arrow should be in there. Should be knocked back here to where it clicked. Should be sitting in the rest just like that. And now we're ready to go ahead and draw back. And this is a really important step. Not only because it's the way you pretty much pull back the bow, but also if you do it incorrectly and you learn the wrong way, it can lead to bad habits down the road. The way I see a lot of people doing it, and I guess the instinctive way, is to go ahead and pull down like this and then come up. But you really don't want to do that. And so instead of pulling down with your bicep, what a lot of people do, and it's easier on muscles too, is by pointing your elbow a little bit up, and then they actually pull back using mostly their back muscles. And your back muscles are a lot stronger, they're a lot bigger, and they can do that same motion over and over and over a lot more without getting tired, and without stretching or cramping up or anything like that. So now that we got the drawback, it's time to find an anchor point. And an anchor point is way back here where your line touches your face, because one of the things with archery is you want to be as consistent as possible. This machine is going to do the same thing every time. The only variable is going to be you. So the more that you can do the same time every time, the better off you're going to be. Also, one thing I'm not mentioning yet is with a compound bow, you're usually going to be using a release. This is a wrist strap style release, so it wraps around your hand, has this little trigger that opens up, and I'm going to clip it right here on the D loop. Boom. And now you're going to use that to pull back. I always like to put my finger behind the trigger as I'm pulling it back. That way I accidentally don't come up and then my finger touch it, and then something like that happens. On a recurve bow, which is more like an Indian style bow, you usually use your fingers or some kind of tab, but on a really high powered compound bow, you really don't want to use your fingers. And there's multiple kinds of releases out there, but the release is just a general idea that you controllably pull back and are controllably allowed to let it go. But now I'm about to draw again. Let's talk about our grip right here. What we don't want to do is grip it like we're holding on to something, because realistically, we don't need to hold on to it but very little. Because once we start drawing back, I don't have to use my fingers at all, because the pressure of this hand and the string is going to be pulling it back into my hand. So you don't want to be gripping it like this. You kind of just want to let it sit in your hand and be kind of relaxed. But let's go ahead and draw back. And now let's figure out how to do the anchor point. I like to anchor right here. I like to get it right back in here, find a nice place on my face, and then I like to touch the tip of the string with my nose, right here, touches the corner of my mouth. Every single time, it just barely touches it. It's not pushing into it like this, it's just barely touching it. And then from there, my thumb ends up touching the bottom of my jaw every single time, and then whenever I'm ready to shoot, I'm just going to slowly pull the trigger. Just like that. Really slow, because if you jerk it, you're putting in jerk into it, and then it's going to move the bag, and then it's going to be a little bit extra movement that isn't going to be predictable. Shoot! I'm gonna take a break for a minute. Holding that bow back that long hurt a little bit. Felt that. Let me grab the arrow and let's talk about arrows and targets real quick. And that's another thing about before you shoot, you wanna make sure you're shooting into some kind of target and that in case you miss, it's not gonna go somewhere it's not. So I have this nice hill behind me. That's really nice. I have a couple targets here. This one's a bag target. They're super good. They can stop a lot of arrows. This one's a cube made out of foam. I've got some animal targets there, which is always fun to shoot. And my arrow went pretty well where I was aiming, so that's good. Let me pull this out real quick. And most of the time for target shooting, people's gonna have a tip on an arrow. This is called a field point. It's pretty much like a little bullet point, but it's simple. It flies really good. It just goes in the target, doesn't do much damage, and pulls out easy. When you're hunting, you'll put on like a razor blade tip called a broadhead. We'll talk about that later though. Now that we've talked about pulling the bow back and how to anchor in the same spot every time, now let's go ahead and talk about aiming. So on a compound bow, somewhere in the string, there's gonna be this thing right here. It's called a peep sight. And it's got a little circle in it that you actually look through when you pull it back. And this is another thing to where if it's not just right, you may have to take it to a bow shop and let them adjust it. But I'll go ahead and pull her back that way, because whenever I anchor, not only is my nose touching the string, the corner of my mouth touching the string, but my eye is looking directly through that peep sight. And I'll show you what it looks like. This is what it should look like, because you're looking through the peep sight in the back, which is your rear sight, and your front sight is going to be the sight with the pins. And you want to perfectly center this housing in the middle of the peep sight. And from there, you can see all the different pins. Those are my different ranges. So the top pin, it's going to be 20 yards, 30, 40, 50, and 60. That way at different ranges, I'm able to slightly adjust on my target up and down, and that'll help make the arrow go where it goes. And those are adjustments that you just have to shoot and then make small movements to adjust them. If you're just getting started though, don't worry about shooting 60 yards. Start at 20 and maybe even step back to 30 once you feel comfortable. Most of the hunting shots you're ever gonna take is gonna be within 30 yards anyways. Now let's talk about stance. How do you wanna stand as you're shooting the bow? Well, you don't want to square up to the target, pull back like this, because that just don't look right, does it? Answer's no. You don't want to be like this and then pull the bow back like this, because that don't look right, does it? Answer's no. A good stance is to be pretty well, I don't know, like sideways to the target. That way, all you got to do from here is you're pulling back. Maybe you can be slightly angled, but you don't want to be too over angled, and you don't want to be angled backwards. You want to either be like straight out or slightly towards the target, but barely any. I'm shooting directly this way, and you can kind of see the stance. That way, you can put this arm out and draw back, and you're able to use all your draw length, and it's actually not that hard to hold back because this arm, my left arm holding the bow, it's pretty straight. Now, it's not locked. That's something we got to talk about. You don't lock your arm because then your arm is in the path of the string. Let's talk about that because that can be a really big mistake that hurts, physically hurts. All right, let's talk about it. As you draw, if you lock your arm, then whenever you release the arrow, the string is going to scrape your arm and it will hurt bad. What you want to do is you want to hold your arm pretty straight, but with a slight bend in it. Slightly bending so that it's out of the way of the string, but it's still straight enough so that it's holding like a board and it's actually holding the bow back without as much effort. If you bend your arm too much, then you're putting a lot more effort into holding the bow back. Think about it like this. If you're pushing up against the wall, the easiest way is to lock your arm, because then it's taking no effort. But we don't want to do that because your string will hit your arm. And you don't want to bend it like this because now you're using your bicep to push against. And that's pretty hard too. What you want to do is pretty well straighten your arm, but where there's still enough bend in it to where your arm is out of the way of the arrow. This way, I'm just using a little bit of stabilizing muscles, but I'm still able to hold back the wall without using a lot of strength. That's the best way to do it. Now that we've got some of that basic form, let's talk about hitting our target and what are the little things we can do to make a big impact. Small streaks, big leaks. But yeah, if you guys are just getting started, start close. 15 yards away, don't make it harder than it needs to be. Whenever you get really practiced up, maybe you can practice at 60 yards, but I'm not going to be shooting a deer anything more than 30. And that's almost because you can't. We'll talk about that later. That's right, Daniel. As long as you're 45 yards away, can't touch that. Literally. But now let's go ahead and put the whole thing into motion. Here we go. The stance, athletica stance or whatever. We're going to aim. I'm going to hold my arm really nice and steady. I'm going to draw back using my back. Bam! I'm going to go ahead and anchor right in that spot. The same spot every time. I'm looking through my back peep, looking through my front sight, and I'm gonna put that pin associated with 30 yards right in the middle of the target. And once it's there, slowly pulling my trigger until the arrow just flies out. And there we go, guys. We're shooting a bow now. From here, it's just gonna take practice, and there is a lot of small details in bow shooting that you can learn to get better. But as a basic getting started, we just did that. Now, just a second ago, I mentioned how shooting a bow and hunting with a bow is quite a bit different. Click this video right here if you want to see what I'm talking about. There's a lot of extra things that go into hunting animals with a bow than there is shooting a bow. So click right here if you want to learn how to hunt with a bow.